Okay, my friends, my outstanding friends, all I can say is prepare yourself. And prepare yourself for what? All right, if you've been following me, and I've been doing this for quite a number of years now, pointing out the things that were from our past, the dragons, the giants, and all of these now are not even in dispute anymore. There is nobody saying that this isn't true. The dragon, they're all over the place, and they're just not deniable. The DNA tests and the giants I have, there's no way to dispute this. Even Yale agrees there was a global flood that made these exceptionally preserved soft body creatures, which is what I have been presenting. Now, that's just the start of it. So nobody is now contesting any of this. I'm not getting any real pushback anymore. You know, some people just say, oh, you're crazy, and then that's it. But nobody's saying, oh, this is really not created by this, or you're wrong about this. No. You know, without any credibility, they can mouth what they were taught as geologists. But when presented with the evidence and the anatomy and the chemistry and the biology and all of that, and then the ancient texts that support exactly what is observed, exactly identical. So where does that leave us? Is this just a big mystery solved, or does it have any other implications and ramifications? And I say, oh, yes, big time, big time. Because if, as I claim, and Velikovsky claimed, and the ancient texts claimed, and every culture on Earth claimed, that Jupiter was the god, also known as Zeus, who came down to Earth as a sexual predator, basically, and set up shop on Mount Olympus, and this is not long ago. And these gods were immortal. And they are in the Greek myths. We're going to be looking into this a little deeper, because now you have to start to accept the possibility, at least, that some of this could be based in fact. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think a lot of it is. I know Typhon is. There's no question Typhon was attacking a giant fish in the desert in Africa. Everybody's seen it. Quetzalcoatl, there's no way to deny that one. That's a giant dragon. I have giant human beings, DNA tested, parts of them CAT scanned. There's no way to deny any of this, and nobody is denying it. All right, they said it might have been a failed evolutionary experiment. That was right out of Yale, the lead author in the story about this specific layer worldwide. And they said there was an ocean layer worldwide that created these mud fossils, the mud fossils that I discovered. And the reason was the silica-rich oceans, the salts and all that business. And all that stuff is understood now. So there's no dispute that the things that I am saying are at least substantially true. Maybe not a 100%. But I'll stand up to any criticism. I will discuss my conclusions of the chemistry, the biology, the anatomy, the history, the text, Ovid, Hesiod, Apollodorus, all of them. And especially Velikovsky, because he consolidated all of that information that was recorded in, again, every culture on the face of the planet. They had the same story. And it was only approximately 1500 BC that the worst of the catastrophes happened. And there was a series of them. There was quite a number of them, I guess. I really don't, that I'm not going to address. The one that I am talking about was approximately 1500 BC. This was exactly what Velikovsky claims. I now, having the ability to see from Google Earth and see Typhon and see all of these things and having more, a time to digest this information. And I have a lot of sources now that are helping me. So this is going, and it's going on for quite a number of years. And once I discovered the mud fossils, it was off to the races. And then I discovered everything I was looking at was landscape, was biology. And then I look back and Jesus Christ said it. He said, whoever discovers the world discovers a corpse. And he said a whole bunch of other things that were all related to the things that I have been discovering. And a lot of this stuff has been hidden. So we're not only going to go through the ancient myths and the texts of what they did say was the beginning of the earth, and even Noah's flood is recorded in these Greek myths. It's not just some oddball Greek gods. This was the history that was written down by the daughters. Well, the daughters of Zeus had Hesiod write it down, but they were the daughters of Zeus. And this was only about 800 BC. The daughters of Zeus were still here. Now, where all these guys went, and these gods and all that, I don't know. But they are immortal. And they seem to have had some kind of crazy stuff going on here. Now, and this is serious. I mean, this is, and I got to be honest with you. I sometimes wonder, should I be talking about this? And how am I going to be perceived by these gods? I'm looking for Jesus Christ. I got to tell you that right up front. Let's just start with that, because all of that stuff being crazy but being true, and Jesus coming back and saying, "Hey, you better pay attention to what I'm telling you. Follow me. Look for me. Forget all that other nonsense." And that's what I'm going with. And he said, "Search until you." Well, I'm going to show you some of the texts that I've recorded over the course of time that just have fallen on me. I don't go and read the Bible, like read it, sit down chapter after chapter. No, I pick and choose little things that just drop on me. And I know it's that's all the guy does is cherry picks. No, well, maybe, I don't know. These are things that made sense to me, and people sent to me or whatever. They just popped up, and they're pretty serious. So we're going to go into this, but we have to start with at least giving the myth a look. And if you dismiss it and walk away from it, that's fine. But once you have seen the things that I have shown, they're not disputable. And nobody is disputing it. So what does it mean? That's the key. What does it mean? And I am getting to the point of my life where there's not going to be a whole lot of breathing oxygen left here. I'm going to be done and gone. I don't know how long, but everybody gets, like I say to people, nobody gets out alive. You're going to leave this body. What happens after that? Je ne sais pas. I do not know. However, reading what this talks about, the ancient texts, there are some rules and there's things that you should do to try to get a good deal out of it. When you're done, I'd like to get the best deal I can. And it says, search. And let me read you a whole batch of stuff. I'm going to read you stuff that will knock your socks off. The first things that dropped on me were just, they have to be sent to me. There's no question about it. Absolutely amazing. I'll tell you the story. Okay, like I said, I invoke the name of Jesus Christ as the true only way out, as I can see. If all that stuff is true that was written in these ancient texts, and it does appear to have some validity to it, he came back here to warn us, to say all that stuff that nobody ever told you about, there's crazy things that are gonna happen. And look for me. Do the things I'm telling you to do now. Live your life this way. Don't do what you think is bad. Don't do the things that you hate. Don't use people. Have compassion. Do this, do that. He gave us rules to live by. And if you live by that and you put your faith in Jesus Christ, I got a feeling he's going to save you from the bad stuff that is very likely. If these texts are correct, and I have no reason to doubt them now, when you read some of this stuff, yikes. Now here's right in the starts. This is the Gospel of Thomas. These are Gnostic texts. And what does that mean? Gnostic means knowledge, means understanding. And these could not be shown during the time of Christ. They'd kill you. So they were hidden in these caves. And these only discovered, this was discovered in 1945, right after World War II. And it's just by accident. They threw a rock in there to see if there was some sheep in there or something, the goats, to get them out of there. And it cracked a pot. And in the pot was all these papyruses or whatever they were. They were the texts. Now, and this was written by Jesus, one of his disciples, who was doubting Thomas. These are the secret sayings that Jesus spoke while he was walking around living. And his scribe, Didymus Judas Thomas, wrote these down. And number one, he said, Jesus said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. And that brings up a very, very interesting question. What specifically is death? That I haven't figured out yet. If something happens to your soul, can your soul evaporate and that's the end of it and it just goes back into particles? Maybe. But if you try to understand, because you're never going to understand these. All you can do is try. And here's what he says. Here's exactly what Jesus said. Number 2, listen to this. Let him who seeks, in other words, if you don't seek, you forget about it, you're done anyway. But let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. Don't just accept what somebody tells you. Don't just run into a bunch of brick walls and say, that's it, I'm done. Just keep on. So if you seek, which you have to seek or you're done anyway, you seek, continue until you find. Now, you keep finding it, but I can tell you what, this is an absolute fact. When you find, you will become troubled. Absolutely. I was more troubled than you can possibly believe trouble can be. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and astonished is mild. And he will rule over the all. Now, what does that mean? I've been trying to understand that for a long time. He will rule over the all. Well, first of all, if you don't seek and find, or at least try to find, and when you find, you're going to become troubled, and so you're really getting to a point where you've done some research to become astonished and all that, and maybe that's what you have to do to get into the next life, like move up the rank, and maybe you'll be put in charge of something. I don't know, will rule over the all. I have no idea what that means. All I know is it sounds pretty good. Better than he'll be turned into dust or tortured for eternity. And he goes on. He says, you recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. For there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. And this is at the end of the days. They said there's going to come a time when everything's going to be known. And there will be nothing that's hidden that is not brought to light. Basically, that's what I heard. All right. You see this? These are the rules he's laying down right now. His disciples questioned him and said to him, do you want us to fast? How shall we pray? What shall we do? Shall we give alms? How do we get into heaven? Basically is what they're asking. What diet shall we observe? Jesus said, do not tell lies. Do not do what you hate. For all things are plain in the sight of heaven. For nothing hidden will not become manifest, and nothing covered will remain without being uncovered. And that's what's happening right now. Everything's just wide open. And again, I don't think anybody is really disputing it. Anybody that's paid any attention to it. You have the just outright scoffers. They couldn't care less. They're perfectly happy deluded. PhDolia. They don't care about the truth of it as long as everything's working in their favor. And that's what I have found. And that's also written in these texts. When I tell you about what it says about the authorities and so forth, it's not flattering. All right, this is another shocker. I've been talking about dipole electron flood theory, and I say that there is nothing that isn't made out of dipole electrons, which are literally light. They come from the sun, they are light. Now listen to this. This is what Jesus said again. Where is it? Number 50. Jesus said, if they say to you, where did you come from? In other words, where are you from? Say to them, we came from the light. And the only place and the place where the light came into being on its own accord. Listen to that very carefully. Where did you come from? Tell them, we came from the light. The place where the light came into being on its own accord. The only place I know of is the sun. The sun made these particles, electron flood particles, and they are what makes everything there is. So he said, tell them you came from the light, where the light came into being on its own accord. So the sun is making this on its own accord. It's just sending it out. And it established itself and became manifest through their image. All right, so in other words, the light established itself and globbed together and became manifest, seeing, and into their image, which is apparently they're human-looking gods. At some point they had to be human-looking, because they said make them in our own image. Now, if they say to you, is it you? Say, we are its children. So we are the children of the light. We are the elect of the living Father. We are the molecules and the particles of light that have been chosen to have a soul and to be creatures, and to either advance or maybe just turn back into dust if you don't work with your elected particles. I don't know what's going to happen to you. But anyway, he says, if they say to you, is it you? Say, we are its children, the children of the light. We are the elect. We are the special ones of the living Father. If they ask you, what is the sign of your Father in you? Say to them, it is movement and repose. That's exactly what light does. It goes, and then sooner or later it just stops, and it becomes an actual piece of matter. It's movement as it's turning from the sun, where it's emitted because we're children of it, and then sooner or later it turns into repose, where it is just nothing but matter. And then he says, and I've shown the dipoles over and over. Then he says here, Jesus said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. Everywhere I look, that's what I'm seeing. And then it says, and whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. Meaning, I think, superior to the other people in a world that just aren't thinking. And again, it talks about being a body. Number 80, I think it is. I've tried to understand this stuff, and it's hard to understand, and nobody's going to understand it. What does this mean? Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found a body, but he who has found a body is superior to the world. So he's talking about a corpse and a body, and that's exactly what it is. This is exactly correct. And in the early text, it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and that's exactly what the myths talk about, where the sky actually ate the Titans and had them inside the earth in Tartarus. All I can say is it's just way a lot to look into, and this is Apollodorus here. All right, let me just show you something about this. Okay, this is, once again, just completely over the top. But as I said, there was giants in the earth in those days. This is Apollodorus telling the story of all of the ancient myth, starting with Hesiod, basically. Hesiod was the one that wrote from the daughters of Zeus. And this starts out with the birth of Zeus and how the whole, really how the whole earth and everything started. Because all there was in the beginning was the sky and the earth, which was Gaia, and Tartarus, whatever. Here, let me just read This is all that there was in the beginning. Sky was the first who ruled over the whole world. So he was over the whole world. Having wedded the earth, literally having sex with the earth, he begat first the 100-handed. They had 100 hands, as they are named, and here's the names of them, who were unsurpassed in size and might, each of them having 100 hands and 50 heads. They were monsters, and there was 3 of them. All right, Breris, Gaius, and Codus. Now, after these, earth bore him the Cyclopses. To wit means which were Argus, Sterophus, Brontus, 3 of them, of whom each had 1 eye on his forehead. But them, all of them, Sky, who was the Sky who ruled over them, bound and cast into Tartarus. He sent them down to Tartarus, inside the earth, a gloomy place in Hades, as far distant from the earth as the earth is distant from the sky. So it's apparently it's deep inside the earth. And he locked them in there. See, these giants were in the earth in those days. And he was afraid they were going to overthrow him because there were such giants and monsters. So again, he begat children by earth. And these were some more Titans. They were the Titans, as they are named: Ocean, Cous, Hypers, Christ, Iapetus, and the youngest of all, Kronos. Also daughters were the Titanides. There's another more giants. They're called Tethys, Rhea, Themis, Mesame, Phoebe, Diona, and Thea. Now, and he ate them too. Earth grieved at the destruction of her children who had been cast into Tartarus, persuading the Titans, so her Titan kids down in Tartarus, to attack their father, and gave Kronos, all right, he's this guy here, an adamantine sickle. Adamantine is some kind of really tough, sharp, and it was made into a sickle. And they, all but Ocean said, I'm not doing it. All of them got together and they attacked him. And he was coming to have sex with the earth. And they attacked him, and Kronos cut off his father's genitals and threw them into the sea. And from the drops of the flowing blood were born the Furies, which are, they are the torturers in hell, of which were Electro, Bistomi, and Megara. They all seem to have 3s. And having dethroned their father, they brought up their brethren. So in other words, they killed Kronos. I'm sorry, Kronos killed the father who was the Sky. So Kronos killed his father. And having dethroned him, they brought up their brethren who had been hurled down to Tartarus and committed the sovereignty to Kronos. So now Kronos is top dog. But he was scared of these guys. So he said he again bound and shut them up, all these guys that helped him, back into Tartarus, and wedded his sister Rhea. And since both earth and sky foretold him, they told Kronos that he would be dethroned by his own son. So the earth and the sky said, it's foretold, your son is going to overthrow you. So what did Kronos do? Every time she got pregnant, he used to swallow his offspring at birth. So he's got them down in his stomach. His firstborn, Hestia, he swallowed, then Demeter and Hera, and after them, Pluto and Poseidon. Pluto was a planet. Poseidon is another one of these gods. Now, enraged at this, Rhea hid out in Crete. She repaired to Crete. She hid out there when she was big with Zeus. So she's pregnant. She's going to have Zeus, and she knows if she is there, he's going to eat him. So she goes to Crete to hide out. And she brought him forth in a cave at Dicte. She gave him to the Curetes and the nymphs and the daughters of Melissus to nurse. So she gave him up to be taken care of. And what she did, she gave him, here's what she said. So these nymphs fed the child on the milk of Amalthethi, and the Curetes in arms guarded the babe in the cave. These Curetes, they were clashing their spears on their shields in order that Kronos might not hear the child's voice. Now, normally she would have to give the baby to Kronos and he would eat it. So Rhea wrapped a stone in a swaddling cloth and gave it to Kronos to swallow as if it were the newborn child, and he did. So now when Zeus was full grown, he took Metis, the daughter of Ocean, to help him, and she gave Kronos a drug to swallow. So she doped Kronos. And it forced him to disgorge first the stone, then the children whom he had swallowed. These are immortal. He didn't swallow them and they just all turned into acid in his stomach or anything. They were immortal creatures, and he just was, holding them inside his immortal gut. So it forced him to disgorge the stone, then the children whom he had swallowed, and with their aid Zeus waged a war against Kronos and the Titans. Okay, they fought for 10 years, and Earth prophesied victory to Zeus if he should have as allies those who had been hurled down to Tartarus. So now he's got to take up all these Tartarus guys. So he slew the jailoress, Campi, and loosed their bonds. So he's getting all of these monsters out of Tartarus. All right, so he slew the jailoress, which was Campi, the dragon, and loosed up their bonds and let them out. And the Cyclopses then gave Zeus thunder. So they made thunder for Zeus, lightning and a thunderbolt. On Pluto they bestowed a helmet, and on Poseidon a trident. Armed with these weapons, the gods overcame the Titans. So they went and killed all the Titans. Well, they didn't kill them. They shut them up in Tartarus and appointed the 100-handers as their guards. But they themselves cast lots for the sovereignty, and to Zeus was allotted the dominion of the sky, to Poseidon was the sea, Pluto the dominion of Hades. Now, then it goes on, it's just crazy. It's about giving birth to Dawn and the sun and the moon and Thea and the oceans, and it's crazy, but it appears to be true, because when you get to 1.6.3, book 1, this guy wrote a ton of books. This is the war of the giants and Typhon, and then Prometheus, who molded man out of clay, and Deucalion was Prometheus' son, who was Noah, who Prometheus told Deucalion, who was Noah, to get a chest, a giant chest, and provision it, because there was going to be a disaster, which he did exactly what it says in the Bible about Noah. This is the ancient Greek myth, and it incorporates the giants and all these things. They cleaned that out of the Bible because it was just too much for the average mind to accept, and today it still is too much. But the War of the Giants and Typhon, 1.6.3. Let's just take a quick look at that. Okay, my friends, so as I claim, Typhon in the desert was attacking this giant fish. You have Google Earth. Come up and do a little research on your own. Here he is. He goes across the entire continent of North Africa. And here he is spitting out all of this stuff at this fish to kill him. And here is his dragon-scaled head, or fuzzy head, and here's his red flared eye, and this is his throat that runs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. This is just runoff of a dead, decaying body, this stuff here. This is his neck and his throat, and all these scales are where his throat was. And right down there is where Zeus cut his throat with his great and mighty sword, straight across there. The rest is all just dragon scales, you see it? All these dragon scales running down his throat. His throat has collapsed, and the scales are still there. And it got cut here, and then it just continues on. If it hadn't got cut, it would just continue on into his stomach. Now, he runs all the way across North Africa. So this is in the text. I've shown this literally hundreds of times with no response. It's like it's just not there. Nobody's denying any of this stuff anymore. Nobody is putting up any resistance. Unless they want to, come and talk to me. Nobody will. So, and I have reached out to virtually everybody, and originally I met with a lot of resistance, and now I'm just like, oh boy, stay away from this guy, because I have too much evidence. Way too much evidence. And now, how do you deal with the ancient past? I deal with it just to take it at face value, that it is what it was. And there was catastrophes here on Earth not that long ago. Velikovsky said it was 1500 BC. And I see all the evidence to support what he said. All of my mud fossils are on the surface of the Earth. They're not buried, you got to dig them out. They're just laying all over the surface. This didn't happen that long ago. It depends on where you are geographically. In this area where I am, this is what they call a Triassic region. And there's the dinosaur state park footprints right down the road from me, really. And this is all, I am on the Triassic zone. And all the Triassic is this zone we're talking about, the Ediacaria biota zone, which was the Triassic zone. And that's where I am, and these are all just sitting right on the surface. And this was right, as they say, at Yale, this was where the flood happened, and all of these crazy creatures were preserved, and they're not anything like what they are today. They're bizarre, and they claim they were all soft-bodied. They were not. They were penetrated with nucleophilic substitution, so even though they think that they just turned hard, they had things in them like we have, cartilage and bone and everything else. Caesar, my goose here, that's just a normal type of a goose, and that was a little nose hole, and there's his eye and his beak, and that's his throat. Now there would have been bones and everything else in there. There's his neck. If you can see it with the shadow, sometimes you can see it, it makes sense. And there's where his artery was. And this side's flat because of the Great Flood. And all my stuff is basically, it's all flat on one side. Even the Noto, right here. See, that dies flat like that. And that's where the fibula came down, and the tibia sits here. And these have no toes in them. Anyway, all of this stuff now, I don't think anybody can dispute it. And if you can, dispute it, please. I'm willing. And somebody said there was a guy from another channel, I think it's Archaics or something like that, Archaics. And the guy's name is Jason, I believe. And apparently, it may sound like he wanted to have a discussion, and I'm certainly willing to do that. We could talk about Velikovsky, we could talk about all the ancient texts, we could talk about all of these texts that were written that seem to have pretty good validity to me now. And I know there's going to be a little take here different and a little take there, and somebody's going to think of this and somebody's going to think of that. And I can't explain these gigantic creatures. They're just too big to be, terrestrial creatures. They had to come out of the sky or something. I don't know. But, and at one time, I don't know, this is only 3,500 years ago. Could the Earth have been much, much bigger? Everybody wants to talk about flat Earth. Who knows? Maybe it was flat. I have no idea. I don't know how these things could have possibly survived on the Earth the way it is now. But I can't see a flat Earth either. This right now it's 100%, no question whatsoever. And the people that say, oh, there's no space, there's no this, there's no Mars, you can't get up past this, and there's a firmament, which there is a firmament, which is the ionosphere, that is the scrub zone of our atmosphere scrubbing through space as we spin. And that's, oh, no, you can't say any of that stuff. Yes, I can. I can say anything I want. And that's what I do say. And the Earth is a perfectly, not perfect, but it's a pretty good round-ish globe that is spinning through space, circling the sun, being ripped through the arm of the Milky Way. That's how it works. And we are following the sun because it is a massive attractor. We see it as sending out all kind of light, but its attractive force, because of the dark matter that's within it, is pulling us along with it through the arm of the Milky Way. All right, and I've shown all these things, and we are the light, we are the children of the light, and we are made up of that light. You know, I said I got a ton of little sayings. Well, here's just a few of them here. I mean, I got a whole slew of them. The purpose of Jesus' parables. He said, in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's hearts have grown callous. They hardly hear with their ears. They don't even listen. And they have closed their eyes. They've refused to see. Otherwise, they might see with their ears, or with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. And these are the things, the Mudfossils, this discovery changes everything. Here you go, here, Adam and his angels. Everyone was 90 feet tall. This is in the Quran. See, Allah, the exalted and glorious, created Adam in his own image with his length of 60 cubits, and he created him and told him to greet the group and say, you know, listen to the response and give him, anyway, mercy of Allah and so forth. But the point being is, they were 90 feet tall. It was 60 cubits. And 60 cubits might have been more than that, because I think a cubit in the beginning was like 4 feet. And it's not like it was now. So 60 cubits would have been 250 feet tall. Now I have one here that is DNA tested, and the fingertip, one fingertip, is over 3 feet long. Well, it's actually 3 feet long. And it's been DNA tested. It even still has a fingernail and the fingerprints on it. Now, here's another one. Titus says that they claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for doing anything good. Well, who is denying God? Academia is the one that denies him to the fullest. Now, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. John 1:4. There's no truth anymore. Now, here's Job 41. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportions. That's Typhon. All right? 2 Peter 2:3. In their greed, false teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. And that's what's happening now. They're coming up with all this crazy nonsense just to justify their own existence. And you know it's not real. It's just all guesses and silly stuff. So in their greed, these false teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. The long-standing verdict against them remains in force, and their destruction does not sleep. If they can't deal with reality, I have no greater joy than to hear my children walk in truth. Their destruction does not sleep because they've concocted stories. They can't deal with the reality. God didn't spare the angels anyway. He's not going to spare them, apparently. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And one of them was about right here. 1 Corinthians, brothers, consider the time of your calling. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. He chose the lowly and despised things of the world and the things that are not to nullify the things that are. All of those things, I could put them in a resume. Listen to this. Luke 19:40, it says, as he approached the descent from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of disciples began to praise God joyfully in a loud voice. saying, for all the miracles they had seen, blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, in peace. He's bringing peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Peace. He was coming in peace. But some of the Pharisees in a crowd, which are the religious leaders, said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. And Jesus said, I tell you, he answered, if they remain silent, the very stones will cry out. Now the Pharisees are nothing more than the academics of that time, telling all the crowds, be quiet, don't talk about God, don't talk about Jesus, forget all that nonsense. Tell them to be silent. And he said, if they remain silent, the stones will cry out. And they have. There's a lot here that just falls into so much depth. I don't know if it's all true or not. Maybe I'm just going crazy. But I am considering the time of my calling. Okay, my friends, that's it for today. I'm just going to keep slewing these things out. I mean, I'm slamming them out quite often, but it's all starting to congeal down to some form of a meaning. I mean, what is the meaning of your life? What is the meaning of life? Do you have a meaning in life? Do you have a purpose? Do you see anything in this that might make you want to think, I better consider this sort of stuff? Whether you think it's real or not, I don't know. It's up to you. But I want people to be able to make a consideration based on at least seeing what was written. And when you see Typhon, and then you see what it was written about Typhon, there's no way you can dismiss this. And nobody is dismissing it anymore. That's the key. I don't think people know what to make of it now. They're just kind of scared, and they're a little bit disturbed and troubled and shocked, to be perfectly honest. And I can understand that. And a lot of people, it just bounces off them. They don't have any interest at all because it's just too much, or they just figure it's one of those things that there's just no interest. I don't know why. People are the way they are, and that's the way they are. So I love you all, and I'm just going to keep going with this because I'm finding more meaning day after day after day. And I don't know if I'll ever find all the meanings, but I'm finding a lot that I didn't really expect to find. I got to be honest with you. Every day is just a shocker du jour. All right, I love you all. I'll talk to you again soon. You can be sure of that.